Hey guys, um, this is one of the first of the William of Newburgh pages that I'm recording. This is the first one with any audio, with any sort of commentary as I'm working. Most of this is being inked with ballpoint pen, the Uniball, some of my favorites, and a Pigma 01 for finer details, and the borders are done with or number 1 Pigma pen, nice and thick line there. And I'm just keeping it really simple with just those things. And I'm just kind of working all of my thicknesses and stuff by just doubling up on lines. My approach to inking this is very much letting all of my Mignola influences fly, especially in like sort of more less in the style and more in the sort of like what's the word I'm looking for, the execution, the techniques, the pen techniques, because Mike uses all pen, and it gives it a very specific kind of look and feel that I've always loved. Obviously, just far more cartoony than Mike's work. So, lighting underneath her ears here. I'm also, you can see how I'm creating depth, even though these are mono lines. I can use just kind of create double lines and stuff to create a sense of depth and such. Oh, I might sneeze. Let's see. There you go. I'm also trying to get better about just recording stuff, but that said, I'm on issue 3 of this. I really wish I had begun recording earlier on. The problem is a lot of times when I record, I find it distracting because I'm a little self-aware of my voice, my breathing. The phone is right next to my face here, so yeah, a little self-conscious sometimes. And it becomes distracting. So sometimes I'm like, well, I just need to get pages done. But I also need to sort of share the process with people and give fans of the book a insider look. Newbury is close to my heart in genre. I grew up in the 80s watching sort of these darker children's stories, Secret of Nim, Watership Down, a couple of others, and these films all had these real sense of dread and death about them, but they were fine for kids. They were fine for me. Some people kind of joke about like, oh, this is too scary for my childhood and all of that, and I think it is kind of funny to joke about, but really that's the stuff. I mean, kids are thinking about these things. Yes, about death and the loss of parents and existential dread and stuff like that. I know I was. And then kids today are living in a much harsher world where it's like the world is on fire. They do shooting drills in school. So I think these kids today can handle anything. So they could definitely handle a story about the plague. Takes place during a medieval period. And there's plague about, so people are dying in their bodies. There's war in some of these later stories. And you see death and you see bodies, but I keep it all, I don't want to say kid-friendly, But yeah, the death is kid friendly. It's kind of abstract. We don't see details when there are anybody dead. We see them mostly in shadow, unless they're an actual zombie. This is kind of like, I think tone-wise, I attribute it close to maybe like what the old Goosebumps series was like. Not quite as funny and fun. I definitely go for a lot of darkness and dread here. One of my other favorite films as a kid was Time Bandits, and it was definitely a kid's film, but it felt more like a kid's film made for adults, which may be why I loved it so much as a kid. Like, it didn't talk down to me and stuff, and, there was a threat of death, and you had characters dying, and there was other adult themes in there, but kids can handle all that stuff, I think. So hopefully, yeah, that won't be too much of a roadblock. Or maybe this will be one of those weird lightning rod things that for some reason somebody wants to get upset about. There's some religious stuff in here. It's not a religious book at all, but, I'm tap dancing around that subject because it takes place in a medieval world where, yeah, that was the world point of view. It was this, like, Christian-centric world, so people might get upset over that I'm either using it not enough or too much. I don't know. I've got a very specific set of rules going on in this world. I'll talk about this quite a bit in these different videos, but yeah, I've got anthropomorphic animals. There's also people in this book. Not other people walking around, talking characters, but all the people are like the saints. Angels show up, demons show up, and they're all in human form. And I don't want to explain it too much, but there's definitely a set of rules here of like who is what and why. And it'll be interesting to see if people pick up on it. I was also very conscious when I started this out. Mice Templar is still one of my absolutely favorite things. I'm hoping maybe this opens up an avenue to see more Mice Templars. But I didn't want it to be Mice Templar, so I also wanted to make sure that I did stuff like the way I chose to draw a mouse. Yes, this is a mouse. Was different than how I drew mice in Mice Templar. It definitely has a different set of rules of like what kind of animals there are. Mice Templar, we kept in mind some of the size differences between, say, a weasel and a mouse and other characters. Here you can see that the raccoon is the same size as the mouse and the rabbit. Yeah, there's just very different set of rules and stuff. But I think if you were a fan of Mice Templar, you will be a fan of William of Newburgh. And I think if you're a fan of William of Newburgh and hadn't heard of Mice Templar before, you're going to want to check it out. And there's something about these anthropomorphic worlds that I really love. I always talk about I want fantasy as a true escape route from the world. I don't like my fantasy to be tongue-in-cheek where it's like very modern, with modern sensibilities and stuff. It works sometimes, like I haven't seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie, but people say it's really fun and funny. Thor Ragnarok had bits of that. It rarely works for me. Usually I like my fantasy to just really take me away, whether it's like Lord of the Rings that took itself very seriously and executed itself very seriously. Not that there wasn't humor, but like, they took the world seriously. There weren't modern haircuts and modern makeup and stuff. Like, it really felt like of the time and place. Even if there was somebody singing in Lord of the Rings, it sounded really raw and sounded like pre-recorded in a studio or something. And that's how I like my fantasy to take me away. And there's something very think the word is calming. Feels very secure. I don't know. There's the cuteness of anthropomorphic stuff. There's a quaintness to it that just feels so warm and inviting to me. If I was, when I was originally planning this, it was going to be traditional. I was going to set it in the same time period, but with, humans playing out the stories. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like, well, it's super dark. And, I'm already so influenced by Mignola's work in many ways. It would just literally feel like so Hellboy, just set in a different time period, It's like, well, I really miss Mice Templar, but it's not the right time to bring it back yet. I miss that aesthetic and that feel. So I started playing around with some designs here, and yeah, there's just this coziness to it, Some of it's the Europhile in me, I guess. I love the small English town thing, countryside. I don't know how to put my finger on it. It's all very relaxing, quaint. Not to turn anybody else's culture into a tourist thing for myself, but I mean, I've gone to England and driven around. It was last time we were there. We were in London for a couple days, and then the best part was we just got into a car and drove around the countryside for a week and a half, 2 weeks, literally just in the smallest towns. I think the biggest was we stayed in Salisbury, and then we just drove around. We stayed in this little place called Langport. I mean, it's so small. We visited Bath and Glastonbury, but it was really all about these small towns I can't remember the names of. You just go and shop and drive around, walk around the countryside, take little hikes. It was great. And I think about that stuff a lot when I'm working on this and try to channel that. Every now and then I'll watch some YouTube videos. It's just somebody touring around their local areas, somewhere in the Cotswolds or up in the north, York area and stuff. And they're either walking through an old town or hitchhiking or hiking across the countryside. Yeah, there's just that aesthetic that I've always been drawn towards since I was a little kid. So yeah, it really helps with this stuff. I'm able to just tap into that where I can't tap into that sort of thing on just any project, And I think it comes through. And just it feels. It gives itself a real feel. My allergies are acting up. Don't want to make any smudges. So yeah, also been studying a lot about anthropomorphic fantasy and comics, anthropomorphic storytelling. I went back to some of the Beatrice Potter stuff and Wynn and Willow's. I think about what were those stories saying? What is the purpose of something being anthropomorphic? Why animals versus people? And I think that helped me figure this out. Like I said, I was originally going to do this with people, but why did I feel animals were advantageous? And I have my reasons, but I'm trying to not spill the beans on it. people to kind of figure out like why am I going about it in this particular way.